Daniel Park had always believed that true love should be blind to wealth. At 32, he lived in a comfortable but unremarkable two-bedroom apartment, drove a 10-year-old sedan, and worked from home as what appeared to be a modest consultant. His wife, Melissa, a striking fox hybrid woman with golden blonde waves cascading past her shoulders, delicate russet ears that twitched with her moods, and an elegant tail that swished when she walked, had married him believing in their shared future. For the first 2 years, they'd been happy. Melissa's unique features made her stunning. Her amber eyes, the soft fur that dusted her forearms and legs, the way her tail wrapped around him when they made love. Those early nights were passionate, with Daniel worshiping every inch of her hybrid form, running his fingers through her silky hair while she purred against his chest. But slowly, Melissa's patience wore thin. "Daniel, look at this," she'd say, scrolling through social media, her ears flattening with frustration. "Rebecca just bought a beach house. Thomas got a Porsche. What do we have? This cramped apartment?" "We have each other," Daniel would reply softly, reaching for her hand. She'd pull away, her tail lashing. "That's not enough anymore." What Melissa didn't know was that Daniel owned Park Industries, a tech empire worth $500 million. He'd inherited the company young and built it into a powerhouse, but he lived anonymously, working under a management team, wanting desperately to find someone who loved him, not his bank account. The arguments intensified. Melissa began staying out late, her scent different when she returned. One night, Daniel woke to find her side of the bed empty. He discovered her on the balcony, texting someone, a secretive smile on her face. "Who is that?" he asked quietly. Her ears shot back. "None of your business." "Melissa." "I'm tired, Daniel. Tired of this mediocre life. Tired of pretending I'm happy living like we're broke college students." His heart cracked. "I thought you loved me." "I loved who I thought you'd become," she said coldly, her tail wrapped tight around her own leg. "But you're never going to be anything more than this."
The end came on a rainy Thursday evening. Daniel arrived home early, hoping to surprise Melissa with dinner. Instead, he was the one surprised. He opened the bedroom door to find his wife entangled with another man, a wealthy investment banker named Trevor, whom she'd met at a gallery opening. Melissa's blonde hair was splayed across their pillows, her tail entwined with Trevor's leg, her breathy moans filling the room Daniel had once considered sacred. They didn't even notice him at first. When Melissa finally turned her head, her fox ears perked up in shock, but there was no remorse in her amber eyes, only defiance. "Daniel!" "Don't." His voice was barely a whisper. He stood frozen, watching the woman he'd loved betray him so completely. Trevor smirked, not bothering to cover himself. "You must be the husband. Melissa's told me all about you, about how you can barely afford to take her anywhere nice." Melissa sat up, pulling the sheet around her hybrid form. "Daniel, this is exactly why. Trevor gives me the life I deserve. Expensive dinners, shopping trips, respect. What do you give me? Discount grocery store flowers and Netflix?" "I gave you my heart," Daniel said, his composure fracturing. She laughed bitterly, her tail flicking dismissively. "Your heart doesn't pay for Chanel bags or vacations to Monaco? I want more than your mediocre love, Daniel. I want luxury." Within 2 weeks, Melissa had filed for divorce. She'd signed a prenuptial agreement, one of the few protections Daniel had insisted on, that gave her only what she had contributed financially. Since she'd never known about his fortune, she never asked for an investigation into hidden assets. She assumed there were none. "You can have the apartment," she said during their final meeting, her voice dripping with disdain. "I'm moving into Trevor's penthouse anyway. Honestly, Daniel, I hope someday you'll understand that I did you a favor. You need to wake up and make something of yourself." She walked away, her hips swaying, her tail held high. She didn't look back. Daniel sat alone in their apartment, his apartment, surrounded by memories of a love that had never really existed. She'd married a fantasy, an expectation. She'd never truly known him at all. But he would heal, and he would rise.
5 years passed like a slow transformation. Daniel emerged from his self-imposed anonymity, stepping into the public eye as the CEO of Park Industries. The tech world buzzed with excitement as he unveiled revolutionary AI systems that would change healthcare, education, and communications forever. Forbes featured him on their cover, "The Billionaire Who Lived Like Us, Daniel Park's $500 million Secret." The article detailed everything: how he'd lived modestly to find genuine love, how he'd been divorced by a wife who never knew his true worth, how he'd built his empire even higher in the years since. His face appeared on business networks, at charity galas, on morning shows. His humble apartment was replaced by a stunning modern estate with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And by his side was someone new, Natasha, a brilliant architect he'd met at a charity event. She was human, with kind eyes and a gentle laugh, and she'd fallen in love with Daniel before knowing about his wealth. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. Meanwhile, Melissa's life had taken a different trajectory. Trevor had dumped her after 2 years, moving on to a younger woman. Melissa had tried to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to, but without Trevor's money, she'd struggled. She worked at a high-end boutique, her hybrid features still beautiful, but her amber eyes now holding traces of regret. One afternoon, while organizing designer handbags, she glanced at the television mounted in the store's corner. Her ears shot straight up, her tail bristling. There he was. Daniel. Park Industries CEO Daniel Park announces a $50 million donation to children's hospitals nationwide, the billionaire tech mogul who famously lived in anonymity for years. Billionaire. The handbag slipped from Melissa's trembling hands. The foxwoman felt her legs weaken, and she gripped the counter for support. That's not possible," she whispered, her tail tucking between her legs instinctively. But it was. Every word was true. Her colleague noticed her distress and followed her gaze to the screen, where Daniel stood confident and powerful, Natasha beside him, both smiling. "Oh my God, he's gorgeous! And so generous! Can you imagine being married to someone like that?" Melissa's throat tightened. "Yes, I can." Because she had been.
That night, Melissa sat alone in her modest studio apartment, a far cry from Trevor's penthouse, and searched every article she could find about Daniel. Each new revelation was another knife to her heart. He'd been worth $500 million when they were married. Now his net worth had climbed to nearly $800 million. The modest consulting had been him managing an empire. The old car had been a choice, not a necessity. The simple apartment had been a test she'd failed spectacularly. She found photos of him and Natasha at charity events, museum openings, exclusive galas. Natasha wore elegant gowns, but her smile was genuine, adoring. In every photo, Daniel looked happy, truly happy, in a way he'd never looked with Melissa. Her phone buzzed. It was her friend Chloe, a wolf hybrid who'd known both her and Daniel. "Did you see?" Chloe's text read. "Daniel Park, is that Daniel, your ex-husband?" Melissa's fingers shook as she typed back, "Yes." "Holy shit, Mel. He was rich the whole time? And you divorced him for Trevor?" The words stung like acid. Melissa couldn't respond. Her tail curled around herself protectively as shame flooded through her. She found herself scrolling through old photos on her cloud storage, pictures from their marriage. Daniel cooking breakfast, his eyes soft with love. Daniel surprising her with wildflowers because he knew she loved them. Daniel holding her after a bad day, his hands gentle on her ears, soothing her. She remembered their intimate moments differently now, the way he'd made love to her with such reverence, tracing patterns on her skin, whispering that she was beautiful, perfect, enough. He'd worshipped her body, her hybrid features that some men fetishized, but he cherished. He'd made her feel seen, valued, loved. And she'd thrown it all away because he wouldn't buy her designer clothes. She began to cry,
her fox ears drooping, tears streaming down her face. She'd destroyed the best thing in her life because of greed and shallow ambition. She'd cheated on a man who would have given her everything, did give her everything that mattered, because she was too blind to see it. Her phone buzzed again. Another article. Daniel Park proposes to architect Natasha Williams at Private Island Charity Gala. The photo showed Daniel on one knee, a massive diamond ring catching the light, Natasha's hand over her mouth in joyful shock. Melissa's sobs intensified. She lost him forever.
Melissa couldn't help herself. She had to see him, had to know if there was any chance, however slim, that she could apologize, that she could somehow make him understand. She waited outside Park Industries headquarters one evening, her blonde hair carefully styled, wearing her most flattering dress. Her tail was groomed to perfection, her fox ears alert. When Daniel emerged with Natasha, Melissa stepped forward. "Daniel!" He stopped, his expression shifting from surprise to something unreadable. Natasha tensed beside him, but Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her back. "Melissa," he said calmly, "it's been a long time." Up close, he was different, more confident, more commanding. The gentle man she'd known had been replaced by someone powerful, someone she'd helped create through her cruelty. I saw the news," Melissa stammered, her ears flattening with an anxiety. "About your company, about everything. Daniel, I had no idea." "No, you didn't. That was intentional. I made a terrible mistake. I was shallow and stupid and greedy. I threw away our marriage for nothing. Trevor left me. I lost everything. And you were everything I wanted all along, and I was too blind to see it." Daniel studied her for a moment. There was no anger in his eyes, but there was no love either. Just a distant kindness, the way someone might look at a stranger. "I'm sorry you've struggled, Melissa, truly. But you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose Trevor. You chose material wealth over genuine love. You cheated on me in our bed and told me I wasn't enough. I know, and I'm so sorry. Is there any chance?" "No." His voice was soft but absolute. "There's no chance. I've moved on. I found someone who loves me for who I am, not what I have. Someone who sees me, not a bank account." Natasha stepped forward, her voice kind but clear. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, but Daniel deserves someone who never doubted his worth. That's not you." Melissa felt her world crumble. Her tail drooped completely, her ears flat against her blonde hair. "I understand," she managed. I wanted you to know that you deserved better than how I treated you. I see that now." Daniel nodded. "I did deserve better, and now I have it. I hope you find what you're looking for, Melissa, but it won't be with me." He took Natasha's hand, and they walked to his car, a beautiful luxury vehicle that Melissa now realized he could have always afforded. She watched them drive away, saw Natasha lean over to kiss Daniel's cheek, saw him smile that genuine smile she'd once taken for granted. Melissa stood alone on the sidewalk as evening descended, understanding finally complete. She'd gambled on greed and lost everything. She traded love for luxury and ended up with neither. Karma hadn't just caught her, it had made her watch as the man she'd destroyed found the happiness she denied him, and herself. As she walked back to her studio apartment, Melissa understood the painful truth. Wealth couldn't buy back lost love, and some mistakes couldn't be undone. She'd spent 5 years chasing status, only to realize she'd already held a fortune in her hands, and she'd thrown it away without ever knowing its worth.